Sometimes fate is like a small sandstorm that keeps changing directions. You change direction, but the sandstorm chases you. You turn again, but the storm adjusts. Over and over, you play this out like some ominous dance with death just before dawn. Why? Because this storm isn't something that blew in from far away, something that's got nothing to do with you. The storm is you, something inside of you. So all you can do is give into it, step right inside the storm, closing your eyes, plugging up your ears so the sand doesn't get in, and walk through it step by step. There's no sun there, no moon, no direction, no sense of time. Just fine white sand swirling up into the sky like pulverized bones. That's the kind of sandstorm you need to imagine.
It was actually funny, in 2013 was when I really got to know Coach Ben, and he actually paced me on a few of my workouts, which is funny to think of now.
Yeah, I was writing Steph's workouts, and
Coach Ben was pacing me.
I do definitely use my own experiences in crafting training and understanding what the athletes are feeling like.
I'm running with Ben. I'm running 6-minute pace. I think I was maybe throwing it down a little bit towards the end. And so we're getting close, and he sees the car, and he kind of starts to slow down. And I'm thinking no, we still have to go. And he's like, "Where's the damn finish line?" Then I'm okay, Ben maybe does understand the suffering that we go through. So when he coaches us, I think back to that moment, and he can remember, okay, that really hurts at the end of a steady state.
I wasn't nearly as good as them, but I like to say I was close enough that I can understand the body and what they're going through on a daily basis, weekly basis, how they're responding to workouts, how many days in between they need in terms of recovery between certain sessions. I think I do harken back to that stuff in terms of, learning from my own running. When you look at Aaron Braun, he's incredibly calm and confident, which I think are two really good traits for the marathon, because you need to be calm because it's a long way to go. You can't be wasting nervous energy the week of the race. You can't be wasting nervous energy in mile 1, mile 2, mile 14. You've got to somehow bottle that up and use it when you need it most over the last 10 miles of the race. I think he is an ideal candidate to do that and do that really well. You see it in workouts. He's smooth. He hits the splits right on. He doesn't feel the need to be fast all the time. He's just as happy to be 5:01 as he is to be 4:59 if the pace is 5 flat. You know what I mean? And so he needs to use that in the race, and I think he will. Plus, he's just very efficient. He doesn't have a lot of wasted motion. He's pretty compact. His stride certainly looks like a marathoner's stride.
Had a couple coaching changes in high school. My junior and senior year college or high school coach told us that he was purposely undertraining us so that we would be better in college and not burn out, wanting us to be able to love running forever instead of doing 100 miles a week in high school and then calling it quits and hating the sport. But starting in 2015, after my last marathon, Houston Marathon, I started having a lot of injury problems with my hip, including the toughest break was missing the marathon trials in February 16. And so I just kind of knew that with the disappointing 2015 and 2016 that Adidas probably wasn't going to want me back. Mila, my second daughter, was born a few days after the trials in 2016, so I had 2 little girls that I needed to take care of. And so I needed to think about what I was going to do next. Going through a lot of the injury initially, I had never really gone through injuries before. I didn't know how to deal with it. And so I kind of have my wife gives me a hard time a lot of times. If things don't go my way, I kind of tend to throw a fit about it and not handle it very well. And so I definitely didn't handle the injury very well, and initially just wanted to be done running. So started looking around for college coaching jobs because that's what I want to do when I'm done running. And had a couple offers, but last July I was doing a fundraiser for one of my college teammates and was just doing a little rinky-dink 5K back in my hometown. I hadn't been training much at all, but did the race, and it went really well, and it just showed that, you know, I'm still pretty talented, and all the hard work that I've done for 10 years didn't disappear overnight. And so I couldn't pull the trigger on ending my running career. You know, running is such an individual sport where you have to take care of yourself, and you have to do your own work. No one's going to run the mileage for you. But it's so much easier when it at least feels like you're in something together. And so just being able to do the training together helps get through it, and then hanging out outside of their training runs. When I got hurt, running became a job, which, yeah, it has been my job, but I've never really thought of it as my job until I struggled and went through that. And so now being a part of a team and having great friends on the team makes it feel not like a job again, which is great. Basically, I've just had to accept that I can't control everything. I mean, I've learned a lot in the past couple of years of what I have to do to get my body ready to run and try to put it in the best situation to stay healthy. Whereas, I mean, I definitely miss the days of being a young 20-something kid and rolling out of bed and going on a run. So now I kind of feel like I have to do my old man stretches before my run, and that takes a little longer, but you know, it's worth it as long as I can stay healthy. But also just knowing that there's a lot that is out of your control. I mean, the weather is definitely going to be out of my control. That's not, I mean, I probably will worry about it, but I try to limit how much I worry about that, or, you know, I'm going to do everything I can to stay healthy, but if it doesn't happen, then I know that I gave it my best effort to stay healthy. And you know, there's only so much that your mind can do to control your body. I mean, I think it's just easy to be level-headed while you're healthy. I'm sure if, you know, knock on wood, if I were to get hurt again, I'd go to some kind of depressed state of mind again, but hopefully not as deep, having done it before. When I got hurt before the trials, there was a lot of anger in that. I felt like I had a great shot to make the team. You know, with enough time, I guess I basically just came to accept that, you know, that sucks. Like, bad things happen, but, you know, it could be a lot worse. Like, not being able to run for a little while isn't. If that's the worst thing that ever happens to me, then I'm a very lucky guy.
30, 431, 432. You look at the three guys running Frankfurt. Matt Yano obviously is very experienced, so we know he's good at the marathon. I thought that early on. I guess as much as anything because he loved mileage. You know, he loved long runs. He loved piling on 120-mile weeks. Those are usually the traits of a good marathoner.
The day that I ran my first marathon, it was the Chicago Marathon in 2014, I was exactly, to the day, 26.2 years old, which I think is crazy, and it blew my mind, and I thought that it would be really fortuitous, and I thought that it was gonna be like this awesome day, and it was for 20 miles, but then I kind of fell apart. So I just moved out here, really with no plan, no coach, no training partners, really nothing set up, and I just kind of had the faith that it was going to work out.
Matt Yano was really our first athlete. Jen, my wife, and I started the team in January of 2014 officially. We had had already started in 2013 I had started working with Matt Yano and Eric Fernandez and a couple other people, and then toward the end of 2013 we took on another few athletes because a group that was in town here had sort of dissolved, and so there were some athletes looking for a coach and a team, and that's when Jen and I decided that this is really what we wanted to do.
And I just remember the day that he was like, hey, you want to go for a run? We were kind of just acquaintances at the time, just knew of each other through the running community.
And so we kind of treated it as a business and invested our own money and certainly our own time over the course of 2014. And we wanted to make Northern Arizona Elite a brand.
And we went for this run, and he pitched me on the idea of starting a new professional team in town. And I loved it. I immediately latched on to his energy, his optimism, his positivity, his excitement. It was just infectious, and I just immediately felt like it would be a really good fit for me because that's something that I thrive on. And we started working together a couple weeks later, and the rest is history. I'm super excited to be just healthy again and able to even think about the idea of running a marathon after the couple months that I've had here. You know, if you're hurt, it doesn't matter like what kind of fitness you have or had previously. If you can't get to the starting line healthy, then it's kind of all for naught. So that's my biggest thing for this fall. So I had a labral tear that I suffered in November at the New York City Marathon. About a month after that, I had that surgically repaired, and I didn't run again until like early April-ish. And to be honest, when I started running again, I thought that like my running career was over. Trying to get back into it was like one of the hardest things running-wise that I've ever done. And I remember going for my first like 20-minute run, and it would just seemed like an eternity, and I was so uncomfortable and just I was not enjoying it at all. And that kind of surprised me because I hadn't run at that point for 6 months almost, and I thought that I would just be so happy that I was running again. But I was able to, through my teammates and through like visualization and just trying to change that mentality and shift that mentality into a positive mindset, I was able to turn it around, and I was able to get excited and motivated for training again. And I think part of it too was that I was cross-training so much, which is not the part of running that I love. I was cross-training like 7 or 8 hours a day. It was grueling. It was just, it wasn't fun. And so I like the running part. I like to run a lot and run fast. And I was watching all of my teammates accomplish all of these great things. And I just felt like I was getting kind of left behind. And it was kind of when we started talking about this idea of running a fall marathon and having teammates, several teammates running the same one. And I remember we were sitting in a team meeting at Ben and Steph Bruce's house, and we were talking about fall marathons, and we were throwing out ideas of where people wanted to run. And we thought of, you know, Frankfurt came out, Berlin came out, Chicago and New York City, and just all these really high quality marathons. And that's when I started to get really excited again. And the idea of having the Northern Arizona Elite uniform spread across 3 or 4 athletes in a single race, that's what completely shifted my mindset, and that's really where things turned around for me.
I think whenever you're putting on a jersey that means something to you, and in our case it means the team and HOKA and each other, then you're bound to run better because you have more to run for. You know, when the going gets tough, there's a million negative things that can come into your mind, but if you have a million positive things to offset those, you're in a much better spot. And I think when you have so much to run for besides yourself, I think you are that much more likely to find a way to get it done on race day.
Why do we run? that's actually kind of a surprisingly hard question to answer. There are some easy, like, kind of throwaway answers you can give about, I run because it's my job. I run because it's my passion. I run because it's what I've always done, and I've had success with it. And those are certainly all true for me. But I think that the root of why I actually run and why I put myself through what I do every day, and on the starting line of a marathon and in the last 6 miles of a marathon, and I think that is fundamentally different from a lot of people. So when I grew up, it's about to get like heavy here, but when I grew up, I had like an awesome childhood. I was in a really loving household, but I also always felt like I had trouble like relating with people a lot of times, and especially like other guys in school, and that was troubling for me, I think, growing up. And I didn't really know why at the time. I didn't realize until probably into high school or maybe early into college that it's because I'm gay. When I think about it now, and I think about like when I was growing up, constantly just having these messages of like, you're not good enough, or you're this like other outsider looking in, that was hard. Instead of opening myself up and communicating that with anyone, I just held it all inside, and that is really stressful, and it wears you down, and it like slowly kills you, I think. A big part of the reason that I run now is to prove that I am worthy, and that like what I can accomplish is no different than what anyone else can accomplish, and that really drives me. In high school and college, I was a straight A student. I was like National Honor Society president, like mathlete, nerd. I had a weirdly close relationship with all of my school principals, and I think it was just that I had this really strong desire to prove to people that, like, at my core, I'm good enough.
Nice, Matt.
Hell yeah, Matt.
Nice job, Matt.
5:01. Good. No, quicker than that. 50. I did the math wrong. I added 2 instead of subtracting 2. 57.
I worked for that sub 5.
At the end of the day, I think that the impact that I leave on the running community, and maybe like the LGBT youth community, or even just the LGBT community at large in general, I think that is kind of bigger than the running itself.
My mom and dad at the time told me I was always better than than the effort I was giving, but I thought I was giving all I had. But I just was kind of I guess you could say more of a party girl in high school, and I didn't really do what I was supposed to a lot of the times. But I just kept running through it all, and then into my senior year of high school, my dad was sick at the time, and he was living in New York, and he was going through prostate cancer. Just before my senior track season started, his health kind of declined a little bit, so I took a trip out to New York to go visit him. The day before I was supposed to go see him, he was staying in Manhattan, and I was staying with a couple friends on Long Island. Saturday morning I woke up and I went for a run, and I remember having a really strange feeling on that run, and I couldn't really explain what it was, but something just kind of happened. And I came back from the run, and my stepmom was on the phone, and she said, "Stephanie, your dad passed away." And I was like, "Well, no, that's not true, because I'm like about to go see him." And she's like, "No, he just passed away in the last hour." And I kind of realized at that moment, like that feeling that I had in the run that I couldn't explain, maybe that was my dad passing through me, because he essentially died while I was on that run. And then something just, I don't know, it changed in me. My mindset, my mentality, and running no longer became a chore and something that I had to do, but it became something that I get to do. So running became like a gift to me. And that kind of set, I guess, a catalyst of events throughout my career. And I ultimately moved up to Eugene, Oregon to join the Oregon Track Club, which is like funny looking back now because I'm so not like a shorter distance track person. So I ended up meeting my future coach in there in Eugene Running Company when I was trying on shoes, and it was Brad Hudson. And he was talking to me and he said, "Oh, what have you run recently?" And I told him, "Well, I just ran in my first US championships, the 10K on the roads." And he's like, "What place were you?" And I told him I was 7th. And he's like, "Oh my gosh, you're gonna be a marathoner." And so I ran my first marathon under Brad in 2008. So we went at it pretty controlled, and I ran 240 at Twin Cities. But then the next couple of years, from like 2008 to 2010, I struggled with injuries and sickness. I didn't know it at the time, but I was chronically like sick and injured and ill. And ultimately I saw some doctors. Luckily they led me to figuring out the diagnosis of celiac disease. And that was kind of basically the main reason why I just wasn't absorbing any of the nutrients or food I was eating, and it just kept me in this like vicious cycle. And so I figured that out in 2010, moved out to Flagstaff and joined a group here. And then 8 months after I moved out, I ran my second marathon at Houston Marathon, and I ran 2:29:35. It more reaffirmed like, you are supposed to keep doing this as your profession. Like, you are supposed to run for a living and go after the dreams and the goals that you set for yourself. My husband Ben ended up coaching me in 2013, and that was probably one of the best years of my running career so far. Towards the end of that summer, I got an injury, and we decided that's a good enough reason to start a family. And so we got pregnant the fall of 2013, and then our first son Riley was born in 2014. And at that point, I had about 20 months until the 2016 Olympic marathon trials, and that's kind of the, I guess, rough plan we had, that we felt like that was going to be good enough time for me to get back and get ready and try to give myself a shot to make that 2016 Olympic marathon team. But after I was 7 months postpartum, we got a little surprise and found out I was pregnant with our second child, and that was Hudson. And he was born in September of 2015. So it kind of threw a little wrench, I guess, not in life plans, but in my career plans.
And then Steph Bruce is she ran 2:29 before she had her children. And I would tell you, looking at her logs and talking with her over the years, I believe she's at a higher level now. And her PRs are better at half, and they're better at 10K than they were when she ran that 2:29. So, common sense would tell you, plus her stride is just perfectly tailor-made for the marathon. It's kind of that marathon shuffle, very little wasted motion. Everything would suggest that she's going to PR.
I'm on a different path than a lot of my competitors and the women that I'm running against, because they haven't had kids yet. So I have to be kind of thankful for their journey I'm on, and just take it stride by stride and not compare myself to people that I used to run with, because it's going to take me a little longer to get back to the level that I'd like to be at after having children.
When you look at Ben Bruce, he is a guy who knows his body really well, so that's important in the marathon, because you need to make those decisions on the fly, especially if the weather's not absolutely ideal. He'll be a guy who can, even early on, I think, determine what he's capable of on the day just internally. He's very good at that. And because he's good at that, he puts himself in a position oftentimes where he can close well in races. And I've seen him close well in 10Ks on the track. I've seen him close well in the half marathon. And so there's no reason to believe he wouldn't be able to close well in the marathon.
I just like to play everything, but I think as I got older, the running was probably my best sport. Really fell in love with the steeplechase and finished as high as 6th at the NCAA championships my senior year. So yeah, I'd run 8:33 in college, so I felt that was fast enough to keep on going in the steeple. So almost the next decade was all just racing other races, but when track season came around, like I was a steeplechaser, and some people on the track, when they get old, they're not good or they don't care to run the longer events, so they sort of just go away from it. But I guess a blessing and a curse, I actually could run well at 10K half marathon. So yeah, I've been kind of just slowly making that transition into longer races, and now in some ways kind of taking the dive into a first like real crack at the marathon. Although I've run the marathon distance, I really feel like this fall's kind of my like re-debut at the distance, as Seth would like to call it. I think of the places that running's taken me, and travel, and places that Steph and I have gone together and raced, people I've met. That's kind of the stuff that I'll remember. Everyone loves the courtship story. And
you
although
haven't used the word courtship our whole life.
I know, I never said that word. It's like, even though yes, we are sort of running nerds, Steph always would like to say that she's the cool mom. For sure. But we did meet at a track meet. It was at the NCAA championships in 2005. But we chatted, 5 seconds, met each other, and I texted her, and this was like when text was like just getting going, and I said, are you in Santa Barbara? Maybe we could stop by for lunch. And she said, I'm actually driving out to Colorado for the summer to train, but give me a call sometime. So I was like, well, I'm driving too. So I just called her right then. And
so my phone rang like right away. I was like, I was not prepared for this. So I just started speeding because I wasn't like paying attention. And so I'm like talking to him, and I look in my rearview mirror and I'm like, oh, okay, there's a cop, I gotta go. I had to ask my friend, I was like, so if this guy keeps calling me, but he can't see me or like go on a date with me, like, why is he calling me? Because it was like really strange to me, I guess, that like people could just develop a relationship over the phone, but we ultimately did that, and then we ended up dating long distance for the next 2 years.
She moved to Eugene, then I moved to Eugene, then she moved to Flagstaff, and then I moved to Flagstaff. I said that's the last time.
So we had dated for about 5-6 years before we got engaged and before we knew we were gonna live in the same city. Kind of cool story, we got engaged out on Long Island. I was born in New York, and so I have like roots in Manhattan and Long Island. So I decided I was gonna run a race in Long Island. So we actually met in New York. He came from Europe, and I flew and ran my race in New York, and then he surprised me by proposing after he had been gone for like 7 to 8 weeks, which is ultimately I think it naturally happened where we both like were kind of coming to, I guess, a crossing in our careers of who we were going to be coached by next or what group. And so then we ended up in Flagstaff, got married, and then 2 years later, or a year later, is when we met Coach Ben Rosario.
With Scott Smith, a lot of it had to do, in terms of the first time I thought he would be good at the marathon, was just watching him run long workouts on Lake Mary. He's just super compact, super efficient. He looks like he's using very little energy, and that's an enormous advantage in the marathon because you're running so many steps over the course of 26.2 miles. So if each step that you take, you're using a little bit less energy than your opponent, you're that much better off.
My girlfriend is a resident doctor, I guess is how you'd say it, at the UCLA Medical Center in Los Angeles. So right now I'm splitting time between Los Angeles and Flagstaff, and for the previous 4 years it was between Oklahoma City and Tulsa, where she was attending medical school, and Flagstaff as well. Working backwards from a big race, like upcoming marathon is Frankfurt, so about 6 months ago when we kind of knew that was on the table, work backwards from there when I want to be in Flagstaff for the most ideal training and build up for whatever particular race it may be.
Got at the gas station. Hydration multiplier. Probably use some hydration today, so.
It's obviously not as ideal of a situation to train on your own, especially I'm someone who really enjoys the team aspect and team environment, so I definitely miss that when I'm away, but at the same time it's motivating when I'm away from the team because I know that I have to be doing all the work so that when I come back here I'm not kind of behind the curve when I hop back in workouts with them.
It's really tough to beat Flagstaff in terms of running, so it's definitely not as good, but in the whole spectrum of places I've lived to run, it's not a terrible place to train, so get to run by the beach almost every day, so I enjoy that. But yeah, it's definitely going to be nice to get back to Flagstaff and have people to run with. It was definitely nice to have Steven out there as opposed to doing it solo. So yeah, getting back to Flagstaff, hopefully not too out of shape, will be nice. So looking forward to it.
Trying to afford rent in LA on a running salary is not super easy, but I don't know. It's certainly not glamorous, and I try to, like, if I tell someone I'm a professional, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. It's like, yeah, it's cool that I get to do that, but it's, you know, I'm not really piling a savings account up or anything like that. But again, there's only a finite amount of time you get to be in the prime of your life and the fullness of your life.
It's tough, but it's also like I'm in a very fortunate situation that I get to kind of operate in those two worlds and to a certain extent live two different lives that the team is welcoming of me when I come back in town, and Ben allows me to be out of town because he knows my relationship with Nicole is very important, and Nicole knows that me being on the team is very important to me. So lucky that those two parties kind of allow me to coexist in different places at once, because obviously when I'm here I'm still in a relationship with Nicole. When I'm in LA I'm still, at least I feel like, a part of the team. This training stint I won't see Nicole for 2 months, pretty much until the race. And then when I'm in LA, it's definitely hard sometimes to roll out of bed and get some training runs in without knowing that I'm meeting up with anybody. I'm very grateful to Nicole and Ben and the rest of the team for allowing me to live this life.
On paper, this workout doesn't sound that bad. Like, if anything, just be a little slow on the first one. I don't know if that's ever happened.
I just ran and I was good at it. It's not something that I absolutely loved when I started doing it. I was just good at it, and I liked winning and doing well. But now it's something that I actually really enjoy, and it's something that is a big part of my life, and I couldn't see myself not doing it. Let's see, end of 2009, I was going to move out to Flagstaff. I was going to join another team that was here, McMillan Elite, and kind of everything was set in motion. I was all set to go, and then I found out I was pregnant. So obviously I did not come out at that time. I kind of just asked if I could put it on the back burner and hopefully come out, you know, after I had had my daughter and whatnot, and was kind of a little bit more settled in, and that's kind of what we ended up doing. Moved out here when she was 9 months old and was a part of that team, and then when that team was over, I was fortunate enough to have Ben's group start up and be able to jump right in with him and the rest of the crew.
Obviously, Kellen's a veteran marathoner at this point. She's run 3 of them, and they've all been very good. 2 228s and then a 6th place at the trials. She is enormously strong. She's got great muscles, tendons, ligaments. She can handle a ton of work over the course of a segment, so that's a really good trait for the marathon. She's never, to this point, really bonked in a marathon at all. She's always finished, not necessarily full of energy, but never run like a 7-minute mile or something at the end of the race. So she's got all the tools. Really, the ball is in her court. She can be as good as she wants to be. I think the next step for her is just really mastering the efficiency piece and being really economical over the course of the whole race so that you have that energy left to close like I really believe she can. And that's going to be what takes her from the 228 range into the 225, 26 range, which is where I think her workouts would indicate she can be.
Well, for me, it's pacing. That's without a doubt. I don't know if I've actually I don't know if I've got that down yet. I kind of get ahead of myself and I'm like, yeah, I feel great, so I'm just gonna go. And it's a long race, so if you feel great at 15 miles, that's awesome, but it doesn't mean you're gonna feel great when you're 24, 25 miles into it, and that's when the race is actually going on.
46, 47.
Almost found it on the last one.
39, 40.
A little bit closer.
Usually by the last one, I'm in an acceptable range. The first quarter was like
too fast.
10 seconds fast. Okay, this one I'm gonna hit.
Yeah. Feel good about it. Do this. Gotta make me look good.
It's gonna feel really easy though.
31, 32, 33. I've asked Ben, I'm like, have you considered, like let's say you wanted to run 5:50, did she say 6 minutes? He's like, no, because she'd be on to me. All right, let's do this.
Like she was way too fast today, but I mean, I know she was super fresh, coming off the easy week, and
yeah, that's part of it.
I wasn't out here. When she gets stuff, that'll be helpful, but she's got to do better. She's got to do better. Yeah, I told her I'd just put that 5:15 on her, 5:15 on there to just see if she can do it. She almost did.
I think that having stuck with me for this build-up will kind of help me pull back the reins a little bit. I still do my own thing a little bit, but she's pulled me back a little bit, which is kind of nice. Kind of helps me to feel actual marathon pace instead of, something that isn't really a tangible pace to run for a marathon. I think everybody that's on the team is such a high caliber that it makes it really easy to be able to work with the other girls on the team. It's a career that I think is constantly changing. You're always doing something different. You can never be complacent. So I think that really drew me to it. And I like the challenge of it. It's not really a female-dominated profession. I think that there's six women firefighters in Flagstaff right now out of 72, which isn't terrible, but it's also not a lot. I'm actually in the hiring process at this very moment. So it's kind of a fun marathon build-up / firefighting hiring process for the next 4 weeks, hopefully. So Ben frowns upon it, but I think that if you want something bad enough, that you can find a way to make it work, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do. And it won't be easy, but I'll do it. But the actual fire training that I've done, it was pretty intense. It's a very physical job, so you're doing lots of lifts and carries and drags and all sorts of junk, but it's obviously very important to the job. That's what the job entails. So I think that it'll just be a unique way to weight train. They're completely different. There's one here and one here, and that's kind of why I was so torn between like what to do, until I was like, hey, I'm just going to do both. One part that does bring them together is that you have to be mentally tough in both. I'm not a big person, especially compared to other firefighters. I weigh a lot less than them. I'm not huge or anything like that, but I think that I'm pretty strong mentally, and that's why I'm able to do a lot of the things that they're able to do. It's not because I'm like a freak of nature, it's just because I'm mentally strong as well. And I think with running, that comes into play as well. You're doing a race, your body breaks down, everything's telling you to stop, but you keep going, and that's all internal. So
other sports started fading away. I stopped playing soccer, and Stopped playing basketball after my freshman year.
That's right. I played JV ball.
Running just sort of became a full-time thing. Towards the end of my 5th year at UP, I sort of really knew that I wanted to run professionally, and so I made like a resume and I sent it out to as many coaches as I thought would take me, and as many coaches whose emails I could find on the internet. And a few got back to me. Ben Rosario got back to me and took a visit out to Flag, and actually had broken my foot like 2 weeks before the visit, so I like came out here in a boot, and he took a shot on me, and that's how I got out here. Now I've been out here for almost 2 years now.
Scott Fauble, this will be his first one, so there's a lot of unknown. But to me, that's a cop-out. I don't think there's that much unknown, because we've seen him do the type of work on Lake Mary Road that would suggest he's going to run really well in the marathon. And of course, he's run well in the half marathon. He's run well at everything he's done, particularly cross-country. And cross-country runners oftentimes make good marathoners. So there's tons of traits I see in Scott Fauble that make me think he'll run really well in the marathon.
I mean, like, we have a lot of evidence to suggest that I can certainly run 212, 211, 210. If I have an amazing day, maybe even flirt with 210.5. The fact that other people have run really well in their debut marathons, and people I think that I'm better than, and maybe that's cocky, but it's like when I look at what other people have done in their debut marathon and be like, whoa, like, I really feel like I can beat them. It being my job is like one thing, and it's something I'm very grateful for, but like I also just love doing it. There's not another thing that I feel like would be me. So I really feel like there are certain moments in training when things are really hard or I'm really tired and workout is maybe going super long or whatever it is, when I like feel very free in that moment and very at home on the roads. And there are a few times in the last 2 years on Lake Mary where I've just like really caught a day, and it's been like magic. There were a few times when I really leaned into the hurt, like in the races that I really suffered in, like that is kind of when I knew that this is what I was doing. Like pressing really hard, even if the results don't come, that's still a really gratifying experience for me, even if the outcome isn't what I dreamed about. You don't dream about getting fourth at the Olympic trials.
He also understands that like he's always very positive, and he never has like a plan B for anyone when you're like getting ready for a marathon, but he also knows deep down like things can go
shit can hit the fan.
It can go bad. So we've all kind of come from not necessarily non-traditional backgrounds in running, but everyone has like a little bit different of a story, and I think that then we just try to all share that story along the way, and it gives like a lot of character, I think, to the group. We have 23-year-olds like just out of college, and we have parents and moms of two, and all the stuff in between. So
because none of us were like the big stars coming out of college, there's almost this element of not that I don't like the word like dark horses, but like we're never really like the favorites or people that are always like picked to make the teams or to like have those big breakthroughs. Sometimes like we are off the radar a little bit, but then I think that mentality is what like really fuels and fires everyone up on the team. No one is complacent in their goals and what they're trying to achieve. And then, everyone says there's power in the group, right? So when you see people accomplishing the things that they are, we had 2 fourth place finishes at the track trials. No one making the Olympic team, so we don't have any Olympians, but 4th place is as close as you can get. So I think that changed the mentality of people. Like, there's not many people in the U.S. that we feel like we can't run with, and hopefully hopefully beat on the right day. So that's a really good mentality to have, to translate that to when we're running big city marathons. Like, we have to be able to believe that we can compete with the best in the world at some point in our career. Otherwise, like, why are we doing this?